Hello, and welcome to the third episode of the Duke It Out Wrestling Podcast, where I, Duke, talk about the events from the past, present, or future that happened in the world of professional wrestling. Now, from the last episode of the podcast, I gave my predictions for WrestleMania 38, and for this episode, I will be giving my predictions for WrestleMania Backlash. Now, this premium live event doesn't have as much build-up going into it as I would have expected from how big of a show WrestleMania 38 was. There's only 6 matches on the card, and out of those 6 matches, only one of them is for a title. So that does have a little bit of offness going into it. And even though we did potentially get that other title unification match with the Usos and RK Bro, that obviously got changed, which I'll obviously get into a little bit later. But while there isn't that much build up for this card, there are a couple that do seem like they could be some of WWE's Match of the Year candidates. So obviously, I will go through all 6 matches on the card, give my predictions on what I think will happen, who is going to win, or who I would want to win. Now, for the first match I'm going to be talking about, it's probably my least anticipated match on this card, and that is the WrestleMania rematch between Bobby Lashley and Omos, with the only real difference being that MVP is in the corner of Omos. Now, the MVP heel turn on Lashley at the Raw after WrestleMania didn't make a lot of sense. It only thing that kind of made it make sense with the storyline is that Bobby Lashley walked out at his WrestleMania match alone and not with MVP, so that might have made MVP's character jealous or something. But it just seemed like they needed to have MVP paired up with Omos more than Lashley, just because of how green Omos still is in the ring and how there probably wasn't as much improvement with him after the tag team run with Styles as they were hoping, so they needed to add a little bit more heat to his character. Now, I don't expect really much of a difference between their WrestleMania match with this one because I can't really imagine them really accomplishing much more of different spots or really any highlights that could make this match feel more different or unique. But Omos has been working really hard lately, while he still definitely needs some more improvements in the ring, and Bobby Lashley just seems to keep getting better as time goes on. So there could be a couple of surprises in there, but for who's going to win, I do think they're going to give it to Omos for this one, especially because of the new storyline with MVP. They definitely would need to have more of a boost with Omos, and especially since his undefeated streak just ended, to have him lose again might tarnish the character a little bit. But WWE doesn't really care a lot with some of those storylines, so we really don't know what's going to happen. A Bobby Lashley win could be there. I wouldn't be too surprised if Lashley gets the win, but I do think it will be Omos at the end of the day. And for the next match I'm going to be talking about, it is Happy Corbin versus Madcap Moss. Now, the Madcap Moss turning face on Happy Corbin was something I really wasn't expecting, at least that quickly after the WrestleMania match with Drew. But it has decent enough build-up going into it. It's a typical tag team breakup feud, but that always has a little bit of intrigue into it. And I definitely can see a couple of really good back and forth sequences between the two, because Baron Corbin, while he can be stale on many of occasions, he is pretty underrated in the ring. He has had some very shocking moments where he protected the living hell out of people in the ring. And he's just a pretty decent big man and can get some really great spots in there. And the End of Days has always been one of the best finishers WWE has in the modern era. So there could be some shocks in there. And with overall who's going to win, while the Madcap Moss face turn can lead me to think that he can get a shocking roll-up win on Corbin and Corbin will just get pissed, I do think they're going to give the win to Happy Corbin here, especially because, one, Backlash usually always has the outcome of the heels getting the victory, since it usually doesn't happen at Mania. And also, Corbin honestly needs the win more than Moss, because Corbin's been losing a lot through most of his career, and while he is still one of the top heels, I think they do need to elevate him a little bit more, and especially with all the shit that he's taken over the years, he does deserve a bit more credit and hopefully could get a better storyline over the next few months. And for the next match, I will be talking about another WrestleMania rematch, and that is between AJ Styles and Edge, with another add of the match being that Damian Priest will be banned from ringside. Now, I am obviously going to be excited for this match. It's AJ Styles versus Edge, and while their WrestleMania match did disappoint me a little, it was still a great match, and the crowd being dead definitely did kind of kill the match a little bit. But I'm still very excited for this rematch. It does have the potential to be better than their WrestleMania match, especially in ring-wise, because I feel like what kind of made Edge and Styles suffer at WrestleMania this past month was maybe the positioning that it had on the card, because there were so many entertaining matches from the night. Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn had gotten a big reaction, and there was still save up for the main event, and then Pat McAfee and Austin Theory then later on got the biggest reaction out of them all. So that probably did take away some heat a little bit. And it's AJ Styles and Edge. The chemistry that they showed off in their WrestleMania match showed that they can definitely bring a much more better match in there. And I really hope we can get it at this show. The only thing I am worried about is that while the Judgment Day storyline with Edge, Damian Priest, and potentially other people later on is really interesting, it does make me just sort of think that it's just going to be typical interference finishes, which while Edge has always been a great heel and that has happened in a lot of his heelish matches, I am hoping we can get some more of just a simple back and forth competitive match between the two, just because of the fact that Edge and AJ Styles are two of my all-time favorite wrestlers. But with what could actually happen in this match, there has been the add to the storyline that Finn Balor has been aligning with AJ Styles again. They did the Too Sweet thing on Raw, even though WWE cut it out of the YouTube video of it for some reason. I feel like Finn Balor could add maybe helping either AJ Styles get the win, or maybe Finn Balor can turn heel on AJ Styles and maybe join Judgment Day, which would be a pretty cool visual, especially because with Finn Balor being on the main roster again, and there's been reports that WWE aren't too interested in giving Finn Balor a bigger push. So having him be a part of Judgment Day could be really, really cool. But do I think that's going to happen at Backlash? I don't think so, at the very least not yet. But I think this will be a comeback win for AJ Styles, especially since he lost at Mania. But I can see Edge getting another heel win here, but I do think this is going to be a 3 pay-per-view or premium live event feud. So I think this will collide, because I think Hell in a Cell is their next pay-per-view, so they'll probably want to finish this off in a Hell in a Cell match, which would be really awesome, by the way. But I think AJ Styles is going to get the redemption win here, and hopefully it will be an even better match than their one at WrestleMania. And the next match that I will be talking about is another WrestleMania rematch between Cody Rhodes and Seth freaking Rollins. Their match at WrestleMania was fantastic. I do think that some people have said it's the best Mania singles match in years. I don't know if I would necessarily go to that territory. It was still a fantastic match. And I do think this match has the potential, especially, to be better than their WrestleMania match. They showed off how good of chemistry they can have, and especially since Cody was just getting back into WWE and is kind of getting similar to the differential in-ring works that WWE and AEW have. I think that this could be a definitely more balanced and more heated bout, especially with, while we knew that Cody Rhodes was going to be the mystery opponent for Seth Rollins, the fact that Cody wasn't there did take away some hype that they could have been for a more established feud, which is now what we have here. Seth Rollins just coming out and just talking shit has been really fun, and they've added a lot of really good intrigue with Cody's character, with how he's been saying stuff like wrestler and stuff that's not sports entertainment like. That's a really good add to the character, and especially with the fact that both Cody and Seth have added to the fact that they're both wanting a match at the World Championship. This could also seem more like a number one contenders match as well, and that definitely brings more intrigue to the match, which is always something more exciting. But I do think this is honestly probably the most unpredictable match on the card. I could see Cody getting the win, further establishing himself as the number one contender to the World Championship, because it has seemed like they may want to go to Cody versus Reigns pretty soon, but they're also doing the thing with McIntyre, so there's definitely that question in the air. But I do think that they're gonna give the win to Seth Rollins here. I know it's a little more unlikely than other predictions I've given, especially with the fact that Cody's just came back. And I don't know if they're going to want to make him lose that quickly, but losing to Seth Rollins isn't that much of a huge burial per se, so it would make sense. And it would make more heel heat for Seth Rollins, and he honestly needs it at this point, especially if he's going to try and add himself into the world title picture. it would bring more to Rollins' character at this point than it would for Cody, because I think him instantaneously getting a world title match at the next pay-per-view, one-on-one with Roman Reigns, just wouldn't make too much sense at the moment, but they could easily do it. But I think Seth freaking Rollins will get the redemption win here, because hell, it's Backlash. That's the reason they have this pay-per-view to begin with. Anyway, the next match I will be talking about, I don't know if this one will be the main event of this show. It has the potential to be, but I don't think it will. But it is the I Quit match for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and also, from what I mentioned earlier, the only title match on the show between Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. I did mention in my ranking video of the WrestleMania card how it did seem like with the ending of Charlotte and Ronda at WrestleMania that it really seemed like it could have just been Ronda doing this one match deal and leaving after the WrestleMania match. But it seems like she's going to be sticking around, which is honestly really cool, because I was a little bit bummed out with how Ronda left the company previously and how she definitely had unfinished business, and it seemed like there was more stuff that she wanted to do. And I think she definitely could do it here. And this feud with Charlotte, while it's definitely been booked to be very heated, I'm definitely not feeling the more like, oh, this is one of the biggest main event women's matches in recent memory, especially with how heatless their WrestleMania match was. And I think it's just because of the fact that both Charlotte and Ronda aren't the most popular with the fans, definitely can make it a little less heated. But with the fact that this is an I Quit match, I definitely think this has beyond potential to be better than their WrestleMania match. It has the opportunity to slow things down a bit, have more extreme spots in there, and can have Ronda bring out the more UFC-like brutality into her ring style than we've seen in her more recent matches. And I think that could honestly be the biggest highlight for Ronda Rousey at the moment, and can be a next step to getting fans more back on Ronda's side. And I think this has the potential to be a pretty good extreme match. We know Charlotte has the capabilities to make a great extreme match. The last woman standing match with Becky Lynch is, in my opinion, the best WWE women's match of all time. So there is the potential for it to be a higher rank match than, especially compared to their last one. And as to who's going to win, with the I Quit stipulation, I mean, it's got to be Ronda Rousey. I did predict Ronda Rousey was going to win at Mania, and Charlotte getting the win honestly did shock me. And I think it's just time for Ronda to get another title win at this point. I think Charlotte might even take a break from the company after this show, because there wouldn't be as much build up for her to do besides continuing the feud with Ronda, which I don't really think is the best idea going forward. So it could be a good idea for Charlotte, and especially since she's had so much heat backstage, it could probably be a good thing for her just to take a break from the company for a while. But I do think this has the potential to be much better than their WrestleMania match, and I'm honestly hoping it shocks me and becomes a match of the year candidate. And for what will more than likely be the main event is the 6-man tag team match with Drew McIntyre and RK Bro against the Bloodline, or aka Roman Reigns and the Usos. Now, this was just very confusing, just because we had the announcement of RK Bro and the Usos getting the tag team title unification match, especially because Roman told the Usos that he wanted them to do it. And then they change it a couple weeks later to being a 6-man with Roman added and Drew added. It did seem a little bit weird, because I was genuinely excited for the title unification match. While I wasn't sure if the unification thing was necessarily the right move, I knew the match itself was going to be really damn entertaining, especially with their Survivor Series match also being really good. But I do see the sense into it, because it has been reported that Roman Reigns did get injured in his WrestleMania match with Lesnar, and he hasn't been doing any work in the ring ever since his WrestleMania match. So it definitely leads me more to believe that, yep, Roman's probably got an injury, and this 6-man tag would just make more sense as to why Roman isn't defending the title right after WrestleMania. So for that portion, I do understand, and with that being on the line, I think they could have the potential to bring a very energetic and very fun six-man tag, especially if the crowd is really into it. The Usos, Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, and RK Bro will then feel it as well, and they will bring out a very, very fun match. Because RK Bro has been delivering some of the most entertaining tag team matches in recent years, with their opening match at WrestleMania being awesome, and that Raw match with them, Alpha Academy and Street Profits, also being a fantastic bout, along with Rollins and Owens as well. But while I don't think it could get to that levels, I feel like it could be a decent enough main event match. But for who's going to win, I think it should go to Drew McIntyre and RK Bro, especially because the titles aren't on the line. It would make more sense as to why Roman Reigns and the Usos would get a loss here. And it would, and with, if Roman Reigns is actually injured, they could add that into the storyline that Roman isn't at his 100% rate and could be an advantage for probably Drew McIntyre being the next opponent for Reigns if they have Drew and Roman being the main factor of Backlash. But I'm not really feeling like a lot of hype for this as I should be for a world title program. And while it could definitely change somewhere down the line because Roman and Drew have unfinished business from that Survivor Series match, so they have that already in their build-up, I'm just wishing we could have a bit more heat to this feud than we already have going into it's already tomorrow. Insane. And while I was thinking with the show, I was even delaying the podcast for this because I was thinking there's only 6 matches on the card right now. They're probably going to add another match on SmackDown, right? I mean, at the very least they should. And there wasn't any other announcements. I could see them making like a last minute match on the card, maybe a defense of the IC or US title. Please. Like, the Intercontinental title hasn't been defended since WrestleMania 37. So we definitely need to see some mid-card representation here. But those were my predictions for WrestleMania Backlash. Overall, I think it'll be a decent enough show. I think Charlotte and Ronda has potential to be great. Styles and Edge has potential to be great. And the six-man tag. Those 3 are the main ones that have potential to be good. And the other 3 on the undercard could be decent, could be all right, or could be pretty bad. We'll see how it goes for this Sunday or tomorrow. I will give a review for the WrestleMania Backlash show either on this podcast or I'll do a ranking of the card, and I'll definitely be posting a written review for it on the Facebook page as well. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 3rd episode of the Duke It Out Wrestling Podcast. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and duke out your opinions below in the comments.